That's a great summary, mate, because it really... We got into Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose within less than a year of starting that grocery project. The reason why we got into those 3 major multiples was not because we had the right product and also not because we were ready, but we got in because of our brand. 2016, 17, I'd say, Nev and I were at a stage where we pretty much had maybe 1 to 2 years of like, hey, this is going really well with the cookery school, just the cookery school. Yeah. And our classes are, I think at that stage were maybe 60, 70% capacity. It was getting busy. And we sort of thought about it, and let's say we were having our first business marriage 7-year itch. So it was like, do we just carry on as we are, or are we hungry for more? Yeah. And we both agreed that we wanted more. The reason why we wanted more was because...
Why was more grocery versus more cookery schools?
So no, it was a conversation of what is more for School of Wok?
Yeah.
Do we open more cookery schools, or do we do something completely different that we feel is more scalable that may well at some point give us some sort of exit? Okay, which when I started School of Wok, I had no inkling that it would A, get as big as it has, and B, I would ever even think of selling it, because I thought I might just start a cookery thing that would be in people's homes for a few years and I might make a little wage for myself. That's what I really thought. But once I'd realized the sort of opportunity that just the name itself has given us, School of Wok. Like,
is it based on School of Rock? Or?
Well, yeah, it comes from that.
Yeah, amazing.
It says what it does on its
Fucking
tin.
good name.
And it's got, and there's a pun to it. So it's like, okay, great. This is like
Romeo
perfect,
in.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's the point when I went back to my group of, or my peers, looking at my links and my network, and went, who is it? Who do I know from the past that knows this industry? And that's when Max Rees joined us. So Max and I were on the same graduate scheme at Ladbrokes PLC.
Oh, jokes. Yeah.
I was the first year intake, he was the second year intake. But as soon as I left Ladbrokes, which was quite early on, after about sort of 18 months, the second person to leave that grad scheme was Max. And he moved straight over to Goo. And he was part of the founding team of Goo.
Amazing.
So Max has always been interested in food. But he went down a different route, the grocery route, to where I went. And him and I kind of followed each other's paths for the first few years of me starting School of Wok. And then as he moved into Metcalfe Skinny Popcorn, and he ended up being the MD of Metcalfe's before they sold to Kettle, him and I started talking. So he then said, Jez, I think you guys would make an amazing mark in grocery. Can I convince you? And then I put it to Nev, and Nev has always been wanting to do something like that anyway, because he always thought things like our Wok clock and, all those sort of fun little educational terms that we'd brought up, and trademarked with School of Wok, within the School of Wok branding. He was like, we've got to be able to make something more commercially viable and scalable with this brand. And then we put our heads together and we thought, you know what, like Max, maybe you're right.
But you haven't raised money at this point. You're funding it through the cookery school.
We raised a bit of cash with personal investors like Max and Ben Marston, one of our other shareholder. But outside of that, since that day, we've not taken any other cash in.
Cool. And then what were the SKUs you created? How many?
So we created this. So within 6 months of us starting, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I don't think it's... Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah.
Within 6 months of us starting the School of Wok grocery project, we Tesco were interested.
Yeah.
At that point, we knew we were going to create some stir-fry kits, and possibly the bao kit, but we didn't know what it was going to look like and how we were going to do it. Tesco came in really early on, way too early in hindsight. And they basically said, we love your brand so much. We want product from you. What does it look like? We didn't have any prototypes, anything. And we said, okay, give us some time. We'll bring you some product to have a look at. They said, okay, we'll give you some time, but not much.
Yeah.
And I think from memory, we had about 6 weeks to come up with some product that we would sell to Tesco for them to put on shelf. At that point, we had consultants, some sales consultants in Inventor Brand, helping us with the sales, like sort of building this strategy, this sales strategy for grocery. And they were, I think part of the sort of hard learning for me was that for some reason, there seems to be this massive fear of buyers.
So true, mate.
In the industry. And even today, I cannot see why.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I suppose you're at an advantage because you had the cookery school going really well.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm thinking, because I think a lot of brands, as like you could actually kind of be a bit more bolshy with the buyer and being like, well, I've actually already got a successful business. Whereas I think a small brand someone said to me, like a brand's early stage founder's livelihood is in the hands of a buyer.
Yeah, and I wasn't dissimilar to that. Yeah. I was definitely in that space. But even with the School of Wok's sort of backing, because it is still our livelihood, Nev and I had to, like, outside of the initial investment, we had to put our houses on the line for this, so until very recently, that has still been a big thing hanging over my head. Like, I can't move house without this going well, So I was definitely in that same court as all these other founders.
Sure.
But
why weren't you scared of buyers then? Because I think this will help a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was never scared of buyers because, for me, whether you make the sale to them or not, if your product doesn't trickle through, you're going to lose that money.
Yeah.
Okay, because the way the industry works, if you're using co-packers and co-manufacturers, you're tied into quantities on minimum volumes. Most goods in our world are perishable, so they have a shelf life. You have to move forwards in a way with buyers where it's almost like they need to know what the shelf life is, but outside of the shelf life, it's your problem. Like, so once, if you've got 75,000 units sitting in a warehouse somewhere that they've told you to buy to fulfill their possible sales of 5 or 10 units per week per shop, then you need to be able to facilitate that, right? So you've got to put the investment in whatsoever. Like, no matter what happens, you've got to put the investment in. It's not going to come from, even if you have the distribution like we did, 1,200 stores spread across 3 multiples, we were like in stock, 150,000 products in stock out in debt. So you look at it that way and you go, right, what if I'm to look back at it and do it again, like, why did we take on the industry's fear of buyers? I'm not saying I wasn't scared of buyers at that point in time, but if I had the choice, I wouldn't take on the industry's narrative of these buyers are the be all and end all of whatever you must do. Like, and that's how we were almost trained into this industry for the first year of being in the industry to be able to fulfill the ask of the biggest multiple. So there's 4 times a year you have to discount your product, but margin maintain the sale to the supermarket.
Yeah.
So that 40% or 46% you still have to give
Yeah.
to the supermarket.
And then to actually make that promo work.
So if I actually look at the 28% margin, but then spread it across the year with our 4 times a year in every single multiple, so that's 12 times a year with 3 multiples.
Yeah.
12 times a year.
And that's not even including your fucking spend on to drive people to store. So all your social media, your promos, your gondola ends, all that shit. It's like
the mind boggles as to how anyone even wants to go into the space. Like,
also, the other thing on this is like the cost of business, the cost of businesses increases as. So say you make 40% in year 1, right?
Yeah.
Your Waitrose's new shiny toy.
Yes.
They'll be like, oh, we'll give you a gondola end. We'll give you this spec. We'll give you a front of store. Gets to year 2, okay, we'll give you a little bit less. We want a bit more money out of you. Year 5, it's like you're not a challenger brand anymore. Like,
no,
you got to fucking pay to play. And
but interesting. So between the 3, so we had Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Tesco.
Yeah.
We had in total by end of year 1 of sales, we had 1,200 stores. Big distribution. Everyone was asking us, "How the hell did you do that?"
That's wild. Yeah.
I want to be there, and we were going, "Shit, why are we here?"
Yeah.
Like, what have we done to ourselves?
It's a poison chalice, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Like it's.
It really was. For us, it was.
Yeah.
Because we were losing the best part of 100 grand a year easily. Like,
was that on the marketing or was that on the cost of
a total cost? But maybe more than that. Probably more like closer to 150k a year. For 3 years we were on the shelves, and we struggled. We really struggled, not just professionally but mentally. It was exhausting.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped Islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.